Legacy Library virtual book club, absolutely free to all of you who have chosen to spend your time with us tonight. My name is Kara Winger. I am honored to be your host in this inaugural year of the book club. The series has been so fun and it highlights incredible Team USA athletes who I am absolutely thrilled to get to talk to. They are not only athletes, but athletes turned authors, in many instances, super vulnerable with us, their audience. So, as an Olympian myself, it's an absolute honor to chat with peers who are heroes. And this year they've all been sheroes, which is so fun for me as a fellow woman athlete. So that shero today is Jessica Tatiana Long, 30-time Paralympic medalist across the last six Paralympic Summer Games from 2020 or 2004 to 2024 and still going strong, planning to retire after LA. Jess, I'm so excited to talk to you about Beyond the Surface.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited too.
Well, let us dive right in because we've known each other for over a decade. And we were talking about this jacket that I wore today on behalf of Jess because she made her Paralympic debut before I made my Olympic one in Beijing in 2008. But we both have a prized possession, which is this jacket from Beijing. So just so thrilled to always have shared so many spaces with Paralympians like yourself, and particularly you.
Thanks.
You're so welcome. So first of all, like in the introduction of Beyond the Surface, a gold medalist's guide to finding and loving yourself, your little sister, there she is, um, Hannah is the narrator of this book.
Yeah,
Tell me more about that.
it's so cute. Well, Hannah also helped make this book come to life as well, right? Hannah is so amazing with just allowing my thoughts to come out, and she was kind of the team behind the team, if you will. But she was just perfect, right? Hannah's been by my side for every hard thing. She was the miracle baby. She's been my best friend. She was my maid of honor, and of course, she would be, she would do the whole audible, the do that for the book. Um, I was training in Colorado Springs, and it was really hard for me to like. I couldn't just take off 3 or 4 days right before Paris, so she was the next best person, and I think it ended up being super, super special.
Yeah, that's amazing. I loved it. And then to realize that that was what was happening and listen the whole time, and then learn that your high heel feet are Hannah's feet.
I know, yeah.
It's
I
just the
always
coolest
forget
thing.
that. Because I do love, like, I'm always like, Hannah, I'm wearing your feet. Like, and I should do a post about that because I feel like people would find that I'm like so used to all these little things with my prosthetics, but that's a really good reminder to like share that more with the world.
Mhm. Yeah, I'll get into a little bit more of that, but I think in my own career and in my life, assigning extra meaning to stuff is such a powerful way for me to take a second and be like, no, that is super cool. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really easy for you to do that with your sister Hannah. So I just wanted to start for everybody who didn't get a chance to read the book. The biggest takeaway and so important, so simple, but so powerful of this work of art is to be authentically yourself. That's it. You're a gift to the world. And that's so difficult to remember in this chaotic world that we live in. But I just wanted to thank you for that very big takeaway. It was really powerful for me.
Hey, thanks.
And yes, Annie in the comments is telling us in the chat, feel free to ask questions. We have a couple that we got from the museum members prior to our book club today. But as you're listening, like anything you want to ask Jess, I'm following along in the chat and we'll ask them for you. So I got you. Okay, so I'm going to take your lead on the organization of the book and start kind of with your adopted family. Like you really jump right into these are the people who chose me. This
No.
is how I got there. Um, the work your parents did prior to your arrival and your brother's arrival to understand both of your needs was really powerful to me to navigate insurance and what they need to do to support
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and that, I mean, for me, it's just so overwhelming just to know truly how loved we were and are and wanted. I think it's so interesting, right? Because when I was really little, right, we always had a Russian box. I know you'll talk about that later, but I always knew that I was adopted, but to know these smaller details has just made my heart grow so much. To know that my parents truly just wanted us and loved us and went into that adoption meeting and just had no fear. And I think it just speaks volumes about the people that they are. And I am so close with my parents, right? I call my mom all all the time. I love talking to them, and I just love the fact that they wanted us so much. And, that's all I ever hear when I share my story, when I do speeches in the book, when I just tell people my story. The first thing they often say is just, you have incredible parents. And I truly do feel so blessed that they are my parents. But yeah, it's amazing. I mean, even the fact that they sold their Jeep, right? They had to sell vehicle. Like, they were told by my grandparents that they were a little crazy. Like, are you sure you've already have two kids, right? Like, there was some doubt there, which I think is just so funny and cute. But yeah, we are totally a part of the Long family, and I could not imagine growing up in a different environment than the one that I did.
And then eventually, and I'll get to this, like you said, a little bit more, but the two whole families who love you being such a gift is one of my favorite things ever. So we'll kind of leave that for the future. Um, but to have one is a gift that not everybody has either. So for you to be so rich in that area is absolutely incredible. So speaking of like knowing you were adopted, you always knew. Are you glad you knew that from a young age? Like the Russian box is a really powerful thing, and I know there's like that balance of empowerment in the knowledge and pain knowing that it was true.
I think it's so interesting. Like, this is such a great question because I still do my therapy. I love it. And all of these things, they still come up, right? These questions, these thoughts, and digging deeper. I think for me, I'm so glad that they did. I think it would have really, really hurt. And I would have felt not only at times abandoned, but betrayal. So I'm really glad that it was very present. I just think when I look back, I was struggling so much to comprehend, right? And I didn't fully understand, and they would explain it over and over again, right? Jess, you didn't really come from mom's belly, or try to explain it to me. We got to choose you, and we love you, and all they said all the right things. And they were so patient. Like, I do have this memory of me being like, can we please see the Russian box? And just obsessing over the pictures. And one time I told my mom, I was like, I remember the orphanage, and she was like so excited. And I was like, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I'm glad we knew. I definitely, I think it was a lot harder at times when Hannah was born and Grace was born, because I just think I really understood in that moment that I didn't come from the family, and I look so different.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of pain at times, but overall, I'm glad it wasn't a secret. And they were always right up, like, just never afraid, never tired of explaining it to me, no matter how many times I asked. And I would
Mhm.
say, like, right, like, I grew up in a family that, like, I love you was overused. I mean, can I love you be overused? Like, they just loved every little bit of Josh and I, which at times was really hard when it was like, well, I don't really love myself, right? It was just, there was always so many conflicting thoughts and ideas, but one thing, they never wavered their love and patience when it came to Josh and I.
Mhm. I this just occurred to me, so I didn't write it down, but something that my husband and I talk about is love as a choice.
Yeah.
So for you to say that, like it's a daily choice in marriage, right? To like choose this person like over and over and over again. And that can be really easy some days and like a little bit harder others. But the power of that choice over just falling and staying fallen, I think is a really important thing to us. Like to say, no, like I continually, every single day for different reasons, maybe choose to stay here and be here. So for
Yeah.
you to describe adoption like that is super cool. And maybe like the way that maybe your parents love telling all of your siblings that were in mom's belly about their birth stories, like that's just the equivalent is like going and choosing you because
Yeah.
you chose them too, you know,
Yeah,
universally.
yes. And it was wild too. So when I went back to Russia, right? I think that, right, like in the book, right, I'm so tough, and I never wanted to show weakness. And there's so many parts of me that you start to see just kind of these layers fall off. But I think overall, right, when I went to the orphanage and when I was adopted, and I saw the environment, and the lady who handed me over to my dad, Steve, in the Russian orphanage, that was the moment that it hit me really hard, right? Because, and I know there's so much that we'll dive into, but just, my whole life I had felt like such a burden, and I had surgeries, and Hannah and Grace didn't have surgeries, and I didn't want all those problems or so-called problems or struggles or to seem different. So that was the moment. And I remember standing and in front of the cameras and telling NBC, right? We did the whole documentary. And I was just like, they really love me. Like, and I like cried. And it was a big deal because I didn't like crying in front of, but that was such a moment that, yes, they'd always shared how much they loved me and the choice. I love what you're saying. But that was the moment for sure. I was like, oh my gosh, my parents are just so amazing.
They did so much to go get you. That's amazing. Very cool. Well, and you mentioned Hannah, especially when Hannah was born, it was tough, but and like your description of her as the miracle baby and how hard that was for you is like
Yeah.
I but then like your acknowledgement of her difficulty in being the miracle baby and then her coming to Russia with you, her being your feet, like her helping you tell your story, like talk through kind of the development of your relationship because I think it's just such a common theme in this book and your life.
Hannah, it's so interesting because recently I did ask her that. I was like, do you still feel like the pressures of that, like the label that I just didn't realize I was putting her this expectation that she always had to be perfect. And she's like, no, not really. It's really sweet how we've been able to talk through it. But I think for me, I question everything. Right. And even to this day, sometimes it's really hard for me because that can be so good, like to question and to challenge my goals and to always want to be the best version of myself. But sometimes it's like, it's really hard because I'm like, I love who I am. I love all that I bring, the passion, the too much. Like I'm just enough for this world. But there are definitely moments that I have to figure it out and tone it down. But I think with Hannah, right, she's just so, I mean, when they came into our family, right, I was just so opposite of her. And I didn't understand just this happy little, I mean, we just recently watched home videos. We still do family dinners, and I sent Hannah. Hannah's actually traveling right now on a cruise and doing performance, so it's been really fun writing her. But Hannah was just happy, and I was not. I struggled to be happy. I struggled to understand happiness when I was in so much pain. Right, my bone would come through my leg. But Hannah was just she saw it from such a unique perspective, and I think that just allowed me to just be able to feel so comfortable that she saw all of me. Right. I think there were times with my parents, I still wanted to present myself as perfect or just that like I didn't always want to feel like a burden, but Hannah saw all the ugliest, hardest parts. And I don't know. I think that's what made our relationship so special. And just that it's so I can be 100% myself with Han and Grace. I love my little, I love Grace too, but Hannah was definitely the surprise. And, it's really sweet that she got to be my maid of honor and she joined the swim team because she wanted to be like me. But Hannah just followed me around and just was inherently, I felt like just good. And I was
Mhm.
like, I'm not good. Like I like the word no and I get in trouble a lot. And she never got in trouble. But we have a really sweet relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so fun. And I'm sure that the work you've done on yourself like has helped her kind of self-actualize as well. And being able to talk about that is such a leadership move. So super cool. Um, and kind of last like rushing question for now, because that's just like the full circle kind of thing from beginning of childhood to now knowing and loving your birth family. How much Russian did you retain? Like you said, you were saying yet when you went into your initial surgery. So I was just curious, like if you lost it, brought it back, like if you utilize it with your Russian family now.
Oh my gosh. So sometimes I'll say it when I write them because I do try to write them every couple of weeks. But gee, okay, I think the pentathlon coach at the training center,
Okay, cool.
he was
Yeah.
always teaching me Russian. And so he taught me a few words, but more recently I know like utka, like which is duck. I don't know why.
Classic, very essential. Yes.
But no, I never. Josh spoke a lot of Russian. Josh was more Russian. And I do ask my parents sometimes, I'm like, oh, you should have, like, if I struggle with English, right, I'll be like, oh, English is my second language. But we never really kept it up, but I do some of it on Duolingo. And
Mhm.
that's been fun to try to learn. And I'm like, it's in there somewhere. It's just going to eventually come out. Um, but it does, I've definitely learned a lot more pride to be from Russia. And I love like there's times I get into Ubers or times that like I meet people and they can tell immediately that I'm Russian, or they ask where I'm from, and that gives me a sense of pride just because I felt so ashamed of it when I was younger, just that I was so different, right? As a little girl, I just wanted to blend in. I didn't want to be the little blonde, but but yeah, I really only know Utka,
Mhm.
duck.
Well, it's something to fall back on for sure. That's so fun. And I love like the idea that you've gotten more comfortable, like just globally, right? Because as athletes, we travel the world for what we do. You described like some of your airport experiences and stuff. But I love like I'm full blown American, I actually am half Canadian, but it's
Oh my God.
America's hat, but
Yeah.
um the masquerading as a German is what I like to do. Like I'll be in Germany and people just assume that I'm German because of just
It's
Germanic blood, etc. And it's like really fun to kind of let them believe that and speak a little bit of German and fit right in. So very cool to be exploring it again and communicating with your family. Um, I wanted to ask about just early sport experiences and the crossover between your revision surgery. So gymnastics, like I had no idea about that in your past, and I didn't know if you remembered the knee pain that maybe your parents like saw and took you out of for swimming, or if that was like something you didn't really understand. I can see how that would be confusing
yeah.
since you didn't have the experience.
I do remember it. I remember feeling extremely uncomfortable with my legs because I just didn't trust them. And I liked being wild and unstoppable and moving just like the other kids. And I remember feeling like my prosthetic legs were really going to hold me back. And that
Mhm.
was really hard for me because I didn't want, I would like gymnastics because of what my upper body could do. But I knew that I was very limited with my legs. But I do remember I would jump on my knees, and there'd be times, right, we would be coming close to a revision surgery, and the skin would be kind of soft and the bone would be curved. It never came, my bone, I don't know. I remember it really, some of my memories are a little fuzzy with some of the leg pain, but I know it came through. It came through a few times, but I remember more of the bone coming through when I was at my grandparents'
Yeah.
house swimming. But they really just gave me the ultimatum, right? They were afraid. And I think at the time, doctors were encouraging more, just that, if she continues, she might not be able to wear the prosthetics. And I did try it with my prosthetics. And I just remember thinking, there's no way. And I was on the balance beam in my prosthetics, and they did not, I would just come right out of my legs. So I love gymnastics, but we did sit down as a family and decide that it was time to try. Like I didn't want to keep wearing my legs. So swimming was
Yeah.
perfect. But
Yeah.
yeah, I recently did something like a fun team activity with Toyota maybe a couple years ago. And they took us to like this play gym. There was trampolines and all sorts of really cool things. And I remember like it brought out that little girl in me in gymnastics, jumping on the trampoline, and I could still do backflips. And that was a really fun team activity we did.
That's so fun. I bet you blew him away. And you mentioned your upper body. There's a question in the comments from Willie asking about weight exercises like pull-ups. I have watched Jessica Long crush pull-ups in the gym, so don't even worry about that. The consistency, like that common theme between what you loved in upper body strength from gymnastics to swimming is such a direct correlation with
Yep.
some of the like beautiful lines and length that you have to employ in gymnastics too.
I know. I think my record is 18 pull-ups, and like good pull-ups, like not the like, like all the way down, all the way up.
Mhm.
But that was at the training center when I moved out to the training center, right? I had just started doing weights and got really strong, and that was my goal, but I haven't broken it yet. Again, 18.
Wow. And that was like 16-ish years old, you said. Like
Yeah,
that's where you
16,
were,
18.
yeah.
Nothing
But
hurt.
no, yes, exactly. Speaking of shoulder pain later in life, as a javelin thrower, the full range of motion thing is like I teach pull-ups at my camps because like it can be a javelin thing. Length in the bottom position,
Yep.
and the reach that you have in the pool is like exactly the same. Yeah, so fun.
Oh, all the shoulder pain.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Well, and speaking of pain and revision, do revision surgeries continue today? I have this memory of you on crutches at the training center, and I just wanted to say out loud that like you never struck me as like embarrassed about it or in pain or anything like that. And I know that that's the common like theme of this book that like I didn't know you very well, but like you never seemed like you were going through something difficult, even though it seems like you might have been. So I just wanted
Yeah.
to tell you that you did not strike
Wait,
me that way.
that
Mhm.
is crazy to hear because I think sometimes we think that our biggest, like my biggest insecurity was on display, but I did try to hide it a lot with toughness, right? And not being weak. But I feel like I have to get one more done. On my right side, and every once in a while if I walk a lot or if we have a like an outing or something and the swelling goes down, I can feel the bone a little bit, but it's not bothering me too much that I feel like I need to get a surgery right now. The biggest concern is more infections. So
Mhm.
all these little things that you wouldn't think about, right? As someone with 2 feet, right? Like I would never walk on a floor or like even a hotel. Like I lay towels down when I go to hotels. Like a little cut could be really dangerous for me because those infections could lead to higher amputations. And there was one time that almost happened, a few times actually. So one more surgery, maybe. I'm putting it off a
Mhm.
little bit longer, but for now it doesn't bother me too much. And there is always that fear, right? Like if they cut back too much of the bone, I lose even more mobility, and I don't have a ton of bone below my knees, and have being a below knee amputee is so amazing for my prosthetics. I don't have to charge a leg. So we'll see when that will happen, but
Yeah.
so far we're good.
Cool. And when you say, just for everybody who may not know, when you say charge a leg, you're talking about the knee joint if there's a
Yes,
knee joint in it. Yes, very cool.
yes.
Um, so yeah, and my note was, for the record, I saw your kindness, not your toughness, in terms of like how you showed up. So yes, I know that you were, like we all are when we're at the training center, like in the midst of tough training, but yeah, that's what I saw from you on your coaches.
That's so nice. Thanks.
So this book, I will be transparent. I haven't read Unsinkable, your first memoir. I will. I'm excited about it. But this one has a lot of tools for people, for readers to follow along with and do themselves. How did you decide on that version of like a pseudo self-help book inside a memoir?
Yeah, I think it just felt right, right? Unsinkable is definitely towards 10 and under, around that age, and it has a lot of pictures. And that was just really exciting, right? It was my very first book. I think it came out maybe right around Rio 2020. I don't even know. But it, I don't know. I think that book we had already had, and the children's book was really special. And then this book, I just wanted people to know, right, what we said in the beginning, truly the authentic, like Jessica Long, right? And I think there were so many moments in my life where I did tough it out. I was stronger than people, or I struggled more than people realized, or I didn't want to show weakness. So this to me was all those little tricks and guide and the reframe to showcase people just that it's okay to be so real and authentic, and that honestly that's where your power lies, and that there's little tools that I do. And even though I'm a gold medalist and I figured out one thing, and I love swimming, that I'm real and I'm human, and I have all these little tricks that help me get by being an amputee throughout my life and the struggles of adoption. And it really is amazing sometimes. I get to do a lot of public speaking, and it's there's nothing better, right, than having people stand in line and tell me some of their biggest insecurities, and they feel comfortable talking to me about their struggles. And this book would not have been possible if it wasn't for therapy. And it was actually really sweet. I did give this book to my therapist and showed her that I had thanked her in the back, and she like had a few tears. But it's just been a really special book, and I want people, like, there's so much more to me than just Jessica Long, the gold medalist, right? It's Jessica Long, the person, right? So Beyond the Surface was the perfect title.
That's incredible. And not to be an athlete about it, but like, isn't the joke with therapy that if you make your therapist laugh or cry, like you're winning therapy? Like you, you like elicited
So
feels.
real. I
Yeah.
know. I
That's
know. Yeah.
incredible. Yeah, I love it. Um, well, and to get kind of into the journey part of it, I think like one thing that struck me pretty hard in the beginning is like mirroring the idea of mirroring how we've always been labeled. So you being tough, like being even tougher. And I think legs or no legs, it's a really hard thing about being an athlete, that people see you a certain way, and figuring your way out of that by defining who you are is like the entire point of what you're talking about. But the mirroring part I find to be really interesting. Like we're both women athletes over 30 at this point, and I had this moment at a party like years ago at this point. I was probably 31 and I'm 39 right now. And still being an athlete and being in this room with people, especially fellow women who were like crushing it in other careers and all of that stuff, like I had the tides turned from that's so amazing that you're an athlete, like how crazy, to oh, you're just an athlete. And I had this like very deep feeling about it because it used to be cool and now it's not cool. And I just like mirrored all of that. Like I immediately shrunk into myself instead of being
Yeah.
like, yes, I still love this and there's a reason that I'm
Yeah.
continuing on this path. So good or bad, like we mirror how we've been labeled. And that just struck me a lot. So jumping into the Paralympics of it all.
Mhm.
In the book, skip pretty quickly over Athens. Like, oh, I won 3 medals and then I came home. Like,
Yeah.
can you talk more about, like, in the chapter about anger? This is just chapter one and we're 25 minutes in. Was anger like a part of that experience, or was it kind of a blur? Like, my first Olympic Games was like, oh my gosh, it's over. And now who am I? So, what was the experience?
I think it was more proving myself, right? I think I was 12, I was away from my family, I had my best friends on Team USA, but I think there was a sense that I wanted to win a medal to prove that I was worthy to be adopted. And that's really how I felt, right? I could see the excitement that my parents had, especially my dad, right? I remember they bought me this swimsuit that was like very USA themed, and it was a really expensive swimsuit. And I just remember being like, I don't want to let them down, right? They would do anything for me in my swimming. So I just remember thinking like, one, I wanted to prove that I could do it, but also I didn't want to let them down. And I made the team, I believe, in April, and I didn't head over to compete until August, September. And I'd already done team camps. I went to California for a couple weeks, right? Like I did a lot of growing up, but I do remember I just wanted to swim really fast. And I was really nervous that people were in the stands. And like, there's little things I had, like, I remember being really like thinking, can I put my arm up in the air for celebration? Like, am I allowed to? Like, I won. I saw people do that. I remember my teammate Rudy, he won the gold medal. I wanted to win the gold medal, but I definitely think there was some anger, but I was also just really experiencing some independence. And even though I
Mhm.
was always independent, it was being away from my family. But I just wanted to show them that, like, see, like, it was worth it to adopt me. Like, look how cool. Like, I won gold. Like,
Yeah.
I remember that, but it is a little bit of a blur. But I remember them being so proud of me, and I liked that feeling.
Yeah, so maybe more of an outlet than the anger part, like just like letting the anger go, seeing Rudy
There
do
was
what he did.
still,
Yeah.
I think anger was always there. Like, I still think there are times even to this day, right? It's a constant thing to release that anger because it's such an easy thing for me to fall back on, right? And they're definitely meeting my birth family, like that anger, I forgave them, and there's been so much perspective through each part of my life. But that little part of me, that anger, like that was being comfortable, right? Like, for me to be angry in Athens, I think you would have seen a lot more anger if I didn't win. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
would have been, but I
Relatable.
remember racing and being really like, I wanted to prove that, like, that was still, I was angry enough to be like, I want to win.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like I think a consistent thing just from what I can glean from your mindset. Like I never made a final. I went to four Olympics and never quite made it. I own actually the furthest ever 13th place at the Olympics and 12 go to the final, which is really sad. It's a bummer. But um the consistent kind of mindset that I think you talk about is like that I just want to swim fast. I'm just gonna swim fast. Like you stay really focused on the end result, which is incredible. You mentioned your parents being proud of you, but you also in the book talk about in your family, you did a lot of visualization stuff. And I wondered how they fostered that in you and your siblings.
So
Visualization.
sorry, I was muted. Could you say that one more time?
Yes, for sure. I heard um you talk about visualization, that your
Yes.
parents really talked about the power of the mind in your family. How did they foster that? Like, how did you guys practice that as a unit?
So sweet. Just they allowed me to fail. I think that was one of the biggest thing, and allowed me to find a way to get back up. But my dad always called it my secret weapon when I would visualize my races. And that came later in life, but they really fostered this environment. They gave me this environment to fail, to fall. And I'm so thankful that they did, because as I've gotten older, right, I've seen so many. I don't, obviously, we don't have kids yet, but I've seen so many different types of parents within the Paralympic movement, and just how much my parents were always there to help me when I needed it, but they didn't do everything for me, and how much that allowed me to pick myself up when I fell down and lost my legs. So they just like they instilled in me that, like, you can do anything and believe and dream big, and they were always saying the right things, and even when I would get upset, they would direct it in the right way. But my dad was the biggest one, who loves reading and read a lot of books about the power just of the mind, and how much, like, what he would just call it, like, he really always called it my secret weapon. And my mom would homeschool us in the morning, so she spent a lot of, or the day, so she spent a lot of time with us throughout the day. And then my dad's job at night was to help us with bedtime after dinner, or we watched a show, and he would put me to bed, and I loved it because it was like our quality time, because I had spent all day with my mom and
Mm.
siblings. And that was the moment that that's when he taught me visualization. So we would read articles about it, or parts in the book, or we would talk about my swimming. And I'm so grateful, because I didn't come from parents that lived through me. They were just so excited for me, right? And I think I mentioned, I mean, I'm like trying to remember, but if I ever got disqualified, right, I got Dairy Queen, like a DQ, they brought me to Dairy Queen. Or if I was tired, my mom would be like, you should take a week off, like, just rest. but visualizing really came from my dad, and that was really sweet. And I didn't want to disappoint him, right? I was excited to see what we could do and to dream. And we would I would write my goals out with my dad at night and sit like he would know all my world records or the world records. And I'd be like, Dad, I'm going to break it. And he'd be like, okay. I was like, no, I really can break it. Like, it was just such a fun time where I got to dream, and he never doubted me.
Mhm.
Like, he was like, you can do it. Like, practice your races, and here's how we do it. So I just always had this wisdom and these really amazing articles, and it always worked for me. Like,
Mhm.
I would write the times down and then I would do it. And I had so much freedom to just dream. And I think that I'm just so grateful that my parents gave me
Yeah.
yeah, freedom to dream big.
That's amazing. I think many of us don't learn those skills until like I didn't start writing out goals and like pasting them on my walls until like after college, right? Like I'm 23 years old and now I'm like, yeah, I want to throw the Olympic standard again and go to the games. But to have that just ingrained in you is so incredible and it's a huge testament to your longevity and your success. So thank you, Dad. Yeah. And this is the second time I've like visualized your Super Bowl commercial and like seen your parents in it
Yeah.
the way that you described them. It's so fun.
No, and I would visualize and write it too. So we did a lot of that. So I would write it everywhere. So the goals and times that I wanted to go. And that was something fun, like to show my dad, like the new place that I decided to put my time. So it was really fun.
Mhm. Okay, moving right along. I want to ask Brian's question in the chat, but I'm going to find the right place for it. Um, I really like, as a fellow individual sport athlete, right, the dichotomy of being really proud of Erin Popovich in Beijing when you didn't win is it the fourth race? Got
Mhm.
bronze instead, and she won. She got the gold. The dichotomy of being proud of her and disappointed for yourself, like that's so relatable for me. And I think for anybody that's experienced individual sport, it's really real and it's not wrong at all. And I just wanted you to talk about that a little bit, the complication of it. Kind of wrap that into what do you think would have happened in your life if you did win seven golds in
Yeah.
Beijing?
That I don't know if I've ever been asked that question. So that like I've been thinking a lot about that. Um, it's so interesting, right? Two things can be true at once. I love swimming for the individualness that it brings. I love the individual. I love that I'm racing the clock, that all the pressure's put on me. Like I know I can handle it. And now that I'm older, like Poe's retired, Erin Popovich, she's retired now. So I don't really have anyone in my class from the US that I race anymore. But that was such a sweet moment because I looked up to her so much, right? So she was my hero. I love the way she carried herself on the pool deck. She just was someone I wanted to be, right? She was so confident in herself. But that was also really, really hard because I knew that I was capable, and we'd always raced each other and gone back and forth, all of us, when I developed a really great breaststroke. But it was just more like, two things can be true at once, right? I can be so proud for her and so excited, but I can also feel disappointment. And, she actually thought I got the silver medal when I finished that race. So we were in the medal room, and she was like, Jess, you're in the wrong spot. And I was like, nope. But I do think it was really sweet when I went up to the stands. Her whole family gave me the biggest hug.
Mm.
And I just remember thinking that's really what it was all about, right? Just how she can still be my hero. And I'm really glad that she won and that I still have a lot left in me, but it's okay that it hurts and that it doesn't define me. But I still felt like a failure, right? I still think people said a lot of the wrong things. I was very vocal about my goal of winning 7 gold medals. So it still really, really hurt. But it is crazy, right? Perspective and how you can look back on my swimming career and see the big picture. 4 years later, I did end up winning the gold medal, and I got to give Erin my flowers, and I left them on her bed, and she wrote me this really sweet card and was just saying how proud she was of me. But just to see the full circle moment that two things can be true at once.
Mhm. Incredible. Yeah, I love that. I've had a close relationship with a teammate for many years, and like when one member of the team is winning, and that's also hard, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of people saying the wrong things to you, reporters have been terrible to you, asking you how it felt to fail, and then fast forward to Media Summit years later, and a woman saying, "I don't have any questions for her," is wild. So I was wondering, like, how unique these experiences are, and I hope they're unique, but I want to hear about how they've fueled you as well.
Yeah, I think for me, I never viewed myself as like different, right? And I think it was very hard for me when I was younger that people did, right? Because I loved the Paralympic movement. I wanted to become a Paralympian from the moment I heard about it. So it was really, really hard when people would dismiss me, right? Being at the media summit, people didn't, I think I was only one of three athletes. And I was like, you're lucky you got invited to this. And I was like, we have these amazing stories that like, how are they not just as addicted and in love with the like the Paralympic movement as I am? So, or the reporter that said the complete and total wrong thing, right? Words are so powerful, right? And it's wild that they're so, when I think back onto my life, I can remember those words, right? You failed. Now what? Like you didn't reach your goal. And I was like, I'm 16, right? I dared enough to dream that big. I let people know, right? Like call me naive, but I tried my best. Like it was just, it really was hard. And um, I just remember leading into London, my coach and I just decided to protect it a little bit more and just be, just to show people my dream. Like I didn't have to tell them I was going to show them what I was going to do. But words are just really powerful. And this year, I've actually done something that I'm really proud of because, you know, I still get a lot of crazy things said to me. And overall, I believe it's so good. But people still sometimes say the wrong thing. But I've decided this whole year that, like, I wanted to write every positive and nice thing in my phone. So I have somewhere in my notes every kind thing that anyone said, right? I could be in the grocery store and they look at my legs and they're like, that's amazing. And I'm like, write it down. Just so when I have those tough days or those bad moments or someone says the wrong thing, I can see all the good stuff because words are so powerful. And it was something I did this year. So it's really cool. I haven't looked back on it yet, but I think that's something that we can all think of do like trying just like there's so much good in this world. And when you focus on the good gets even better.
That's amazing. I agree. Speaking of the time, like between Beijing and London, um, you hadn't gone to therapy yet, but you decided to stop putting pressure on yourself. Like, how did you said that your coach maybe was part of that? And you can speak to Ryan's question a little bit here too. So
Yeah.
it's if you were having a conversation with your coach about growing into a person, an athlete who's more focused on purpose, what would you want them to understand about how to best support that goal? So that's a little bit of a bigger question. That time period in your life, you just said, like, I'm gonna stop putting pressure on myself. You talk about gratitude a little bit at this time period, but like, is purpose part of that? Because that's really Ryan's takeaway. He loves your journey toward purpose. So how do you fold that in?
Yeah. I think purpose, when I look back on my journey, has fueled so much of me, right? That was my final word when I did one of the exercises. Like, I want to have purpose with my life because it helps me get through this life. But I think for me, not putting pressure on myself, I just had an amazing coach that even though I felt like I had failed, and I did, like, I truly, in Beijing, I came home and I was like, I'm done. I'm not swimming again. I don't want to feel that pain. Right. And it's so, right. Every kid, everyone goes through that. Like, I feel like kids have those moments, right. Where it's like, okay, like it was a perfect teaching moment for my parents to be like, you can take some time off. Like, there was just no pressure. But then I had that itch and I couldn't stay away from the pool. And then I decided to move out to the training center where we lived together. And I just knew that I was so much stronger than I realized, that I had an amazing coach, Dave Deniston, who just was like, we're you and me, right? What, like, so on my side, like on my team, he was one of the best coaches I've ever trained with, just believed in me. If anything, like, we've had amazing conversations since. And he was like, Jess, I was trying to come up with workouts that you did everything I ever gave you. Like, you, there, I had such a challenge trying to find workouts for you to do because you did them all so well. Or like he said something really sweet. Um, but yeah, I just decided to turn any pain, any pressure into that purpose. And that I shifted my perspective that, like, Jess, you've already won these medals. Just go and have fun, like, do it for you. And I think I always have to have that reminder before games. Um, but okay, wait, this question. If you were having a conversation with your coach and growing into a person, an athlete who is more, oh, I think Dave just was really sweet about letting me know how valued I was as a person. And that meant a lot to me because I'd already failed. I felt like I'd failed with the like tangible gold medal. And that gave me purpose to find a way to like just swim fast and swim for me and swim for the little girls who never gave up.
Mhm. Love that. And the role of the coach, like, do you think that you would have been able to vocalize that? Like, you were still really young. Like, could you have said out loud, like, I want to work toward purpose at that moment? Or was that like the leadership of the coach that really helped bring that out of you?
Oh, I think Dava really helped direct me a lot with my feelings. But also like he knew his role as well, right? Everyone has a role on the team. And I think that David was just so great at understanding that there was a fire and he saw the immaturity at time, right? Like I was I was 18 years old, right? I was feisty and fiery and felt no pain, but he knew how to direct it. And I mean, there were so many sweet moments when we won gold after gold in London. And I remember him just being there waiting for me. And I was like, we did it. Like, I don't know. It was just, he knew how to direct it. He was just so aware of me as a person and my feelings and emotions and where to direct it and when to push my buttons and when to back off. And I think it was more he just cared about me as the person. And that allowed me to win the medals, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I came out of retirement briefly in 2024. I made a little run at Paris, and it was only because I loved it.
Yeah.
I just missed this thing in my life that I knew exactly who I was doing it because of the like deep understanding of who and that's something that you like get your heart ripped out and learn in real time if you're a young kid like playing these sports. But to consciously continue to choose it as an adult who has like all of the big feelings, I think is like so much more powerful and such an amazing example for people who like forget how to go after their dreams. So I really enjoyed the experience. And I see that in you, that you like learned that maybe in London before London and then have continued to choose the love of the game and the love of the sport and won. Mhm.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So the story of all of the Russian athletes, not all of them, but some of them in London coming to you and saying, like, you must meet your family. This is just bombarding you. I thought that was so wild because I had heard the story of like your family actually coming to London. Like it just got telephoned into this like other thing. So reading the book was really helpful for me. But I was curious because I can't think of any example. I'm sorry you went through that. It's harrowing. And like, I can't think of any example where I was that obsessed with someone else's journey. Like, why do you think that happened? Like, what are the mechanics? And like, have you ever experienced something where you're that intensely interested in someone else's story?
Yeah, I mean, that was just wild, right? Because they believe that I was theirs, right? Russia still is like your art, like they think of me as their swimmer. Um, but I think, yeah, that was just a really, really hard. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to handle it. I hadn't been able to process my emotions. And it just felt too real in that moment, just because I had dreamed of meeting my birth family. And there were so many things, right? Like my parents, I think, read when I was in Russia that I had adopted a boy. Like it was what my dad was like, is there something you want to tell us? And I was like, oh, like sent the article. But could you repeat the question, the end part?
Yeah, the
I
just
think
intense interest in another athlete's
oh,
story. Like
well,
how,
I care so much about it. Like because we lived together at the training center, I feel like that nothing will ever top. I cared so much about so many of the athletes, but not enough that like just what that was just so hard because it was so real and I hadn't processed it in the world. I felt like was starting to hear about it, my Russian family. So when they were talking to me and saying like, you know, you're ours and you need to go and honor your family, like it was just like I didn't know what to do. But I do love keeping up with all the athletes and caring about their stories. Just
yeah.
I don't know.
It presents differently for sure. I think that's healthy. Like, let's both
Yeah.
stay in that lane. And I, like, in my life now, I get to just be exactly who I was as a
Yeah.
teammate, which makes me so happy. And like, that was the best part of being an athlete for me is like witnessing everyone's stories and everyone's greatness. So I love it. And yeah, this story of like I just want to reiterate like your realization that you were fully loved by two whole families is just the coolest thing. Very, very amazing. Yeah. Okay. We've talked about Paralympics. We can get to Rio and all of the classification issues. But I was wondering, once you met Lucas, you get married, like you have this amazing love story and just like such a supportive husband. You don't really talk about like his journey with your disability either, or like the way that maybe he bolstered your confidence. Like I've just watched him in person at events and from afar be so supportive and wonderful. And I
Yeah.
wondered if he like really helped you on your journey to loving yourself. And then the organization of the book like was a lot of the games references like due to the world's understanding of the rhythm of the Paralympic Games, right? Every 4 years, like this is what happens, it's what people understand. But I wondered about the in-between times that were really transformative for you, like a worlds or any random competition or training time, and maybe Lucas was there as a fan, or maybe he wasn't. Like your journey together in the in-between time.
Yeah, I think he just made life so fun, right? I think he was so enthralled with all of my swimming, and I knew that I could easily love this guy because he was not afraid of my legs, right? And I didn't feel ashamed when I first took off my legs and he was like in my condo and we were still kind of friends or whatever, figuring it all out. I took off my legs and I was like, well, here we go. Cause I could just feel how people felt, right? If they were embarrassed or if they felt kind of uncomfortable. And he was like, I like walked around the corner because I took my legs off in the room and he just didn't care. And I just thought that was so cool. I was like, oh, and I was just like 100%. I was just myself, right? I was so myself, and he was so amazed. And he read up on swimming. And at that point, I was still training with Bob Bowman and that whole Olympic side. So I had a lot of school. And he just goes with the flow. And I'm like, not, right? Like I'm type A. I like having a plan. I like we just fit perfectly. And I do remember our first time, like we had coffee at Starbucks was our very first date. I was like, oh, I'm going to marry this guy, which is crazy. But he just cared about, like, he thought the swimming stuff was cool. He actually thought my SBs were really, really cool. And I was like, wait, no, the gold medals are cooler. Um, but I never felt different in front of him. I didn't feel ashamed.
Mhm.
And right, I think I mean, I just knew that like in those moments, I didn't just wish that I had legs. He loved me for who I was and everything that I brought. Like he didn't care. And that
Yeah.
meant a lot to me. And he has supported me. It was really cool because he came to Rio and I think we'd only been dating for 6 months. So he came to Rio and he stayed with my family, which I was like, okay, if he can stay with my whole big family, then this is like good. Um, he talks a lot about that. I mean, he can make friends wherever he goes. So like I remember climbing into bed before my next race and him being like having like a little pina colada on the beach and being like with my friends, teammates, or just people and being so jealous, but he has always supported me. The World Championships in 2023, he like had this really cool shirt design where it was like counted all my gold medals up until like that competition where it was left blank so he could fill it in. He's put my face all over his shirts for meets, but it's just really, really cool. And it was wild because in Tokyo, he couldn't, in Rio, I won a gold medal on the last day and he already left. And
Mm.
I was like, he had to get back for work. And then in Tokyo, he couldn't come. So he had never really seen me win a gold medal. So going into Paris, I was like, oh my gosh, like I could not be older. I could not be more sore and tired, but it was really special to see him right after I won the gold because he had never really experienced that. And he had that was his third Paralympics with me in his life. So there's always moments in between, but Lucas just makes life really fun and that there's more to life, right? Like he grounds me, like he keeps me very grounded and very good perspective on so many things. And he is always hyping me up. He's like, "You're Jessica Long." I'm like, "Thanks."
Absolutely. Your gold in Paris was so cool. Agree completely. And he played the long game. Like he talk about like attaching extra meaning to something. That's such a special story that he waited that long and like he knew it was going to happen and he's got your back every step of the way. That's so amazing. So Rio,
Mhm.
and we're running out of time because your story is so amazing and that happens always.
Part two.
Um, but the classification issue, right? I wanted to ask, like, have world records been ratified or not ratified, but swept at all? Like, has there been any remediation after, or is that a non-solvable issue?
It's hard. I think it's just hard. And I know we hear a lot about classification and stuff. Being an amputee, it's really cut and dry. And I think we're still navigating it. I always want to be an advocate for fair play. And I always want it to be better for the next little girl who also comes in. I think at that point, right, it was just it was just really hard. And none of those girls have ever gone back down to an S8 after that. But I felt really robbed. I felt really like I couldn't control my legs. This was supposed to be my safe place. But I don't know. I don't know what life looks like after retirement because I do want fair play. And the Paralympics is this amazing, amazing thing. And I hope one day we don't always have to talk about classification. But it is hard because we have intentional misrepresentation, just like we have doping, right? We take drug tests. Like that is part of the Paralympic movement. But I really want to continue my job as just being a good role model and advocate for fair play and to find ways to make it even better and that we don't ever have to talk about misclassification and that people it's just better for the next generation.
Mhm.
It was definitely it was really tough in Rio. I mean, it was just so out of my control.
Yeah, and that's kind of the note that I wrote down that like in Beijing and London and Athens before that, like you had given your all and the results were what they were, but you had control over that. And Rio to be a totally different thing, like just seems like that was the moment and then starting therapy right after Rio that maybe you started to really discover that like your voice could be used for others.
Yeah.
And I find that really powerful.
Thanks. Well, I am so on the Enneagram, I'm like an 8, so I'm the challenger. I feel like I protect those. Um, but I want to protect the next generation, right? I want it to be the best that it could be. I want everyone to love the Paralympics. And right now, I still think we have a lot of work to do, but I think being out in LA is going to be so amazing. But I don't want the next little girl or boy out there to struggle just because the classification system is it's not perfect yet, but I believe the more we could talk about it and the more we fight for positive change can help the next generation for sure. So,
Amazing. Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned drug testing. There was a question in the chat about exposure to performance enhancing drugs. I think it's a question we can't shy away from as elite athletes because I think people think they're thrown at us all the time. I've never known where you would get one of those, and we get drug tested all the time. So
I
there's
know.
just no way. Yeah.
I I one time like I get really afraid that I've done it to myself and I'm like people aren't going to believe me or like I one time did like a fake tan and like went into a booth and I was like I didn't check the ingredients. I was like this is going to be the thing that takes me out. They're going to know me as like a cheater because of a tanning solution. Like I just get really scared and I'm like I've made it this far in my career. I've tried my hardest to be a role model like you just get really scared but I don't know. We get drug tested all the time. I had to do drug testing, my whereabouts just a couple days ago for the new year. And I'm like, oh my God, like there's just a little bit extra panic, but I don't know where you would get anything either. I've never
Right.
thought of it.
Yeah.
Just,
And obviously people do, but we don't know
yeah.
anything about that. Yeah, it's really wild to have spent 20 plus years in the whereabouts system and not do that anymore. I still panic when I travel and I'm laying in bed and I don't haven't filled out my whereabouts, but now I don't have to. It's crazy, crazy. I thought it was super cool that therapy's immediate impact on you was more compassion for others. Because, like I said, from where I'm sitting, you've always had that. But to open that door even further with therapy was really neat.
Yeah. It's been so healing. And I often look at my therapist and I'm like, you can't ever like retire. Like we have to talk all the time. But it definitely has given me so much more compassion. And I think that's really hard sometimes when you've gone through a lot yourself to have compassion for others, right? Because it's really easy to think of just yourself. You're the only one who's going through it. But I think that's what I love so much about the Paralympic movement is that I've never felt alone, especially when it comes to, being adopted. There's a lot of people who are adopted in the Paralympics. There's a lot of people who like, one of my very best friends is also adopted, missing legs, but it definitely has given me a lot of compassion and it's allowed me to see the world. If someone's having a bad day or if I don't always understand things, I do really try to see it through their world or their lens and their perspective. But it's helped me so much. And I never thought I would go to therapy. I'm like, this is silly, but I would not be here today. I do not believe that you would see this vulnerable, intimate, authentic Jess if I did not show up and do that hard work. And it's hard. Like it's like opening a wound and then it heals and opening. But I know that I want to be my best self and I want people to know all of me and love all of me and know that I did the hard work.
Mhm. The reframe for me that was the most impactful
Oh,
was the feelings wheel.
yeah. Yes.
I had never heard of that before. I just started, I did therapy. I went to therapy first during my last full season of my career because I was like, sports psychology has never quite worked for me. How do I like go from the inside out and really get everything I've ever wanted out of this season? And then I did, and it was incredible. So I'm a huge
Yeah.
believer, but I approached it from a high performance standpoint before, and now I'm on this like very personal journey, which is really exciting. But as athletes, and I think this is exactly where that example came from, to channel feelings like anger into high performance is just what we're wired to do. So it's been really helpful in this transition season for me to have read your book and then name the feelings and where they are because that's the like in touch with myself that I think I've always been naturally okay at, but to really intentionally do that has been really transformative. So I encourage everyone to check out the feelings wheel on the internet. Ask like member questions. I could talk to you forever, but I won't keep you. Um, the kind of through line of dolls in your story, I thought is really interesting. Like when you had your initial amputation,
Yeah.
your parents chopped off the legs of your dolls so that you wouldn't be alone. You expressed rage at your My Twin doll, like not having her feet
I know.
not there. Yeah. Which I absolutely like, that's infuriating. How dare they? How dare they? But then for you to get your own American Girl doll that was exactly you and be able to share that, I thought was so beautiful. Like again, assigning extra meaning to it that like dolls throughout your
Yeah.
life are so amazing.
Well, when you think about it, right, like Barbie, like I would love to have a Barbie one day, but that's what I would play with, right? And I would cut their legs off so it would look like me. But I do think so. Going back to the baby, my parents had a baby doll that they amputated the legs, so it felt more like it was like me. And I just think that's so incredible, right? They didn't have all the technology, they didn't have the internet. Like they just, I'm like, you guys just thought of that? They're like, yeah. And they put the little armband. So she had a little armband too around her neck.
Mm.
And I just think I'll probably talk about this in therapy next week, but just how much comfort that must have made me feel as a little being so confused and in so much pain and just having part of my leg amputated and having casts and feet like that was just so smart. But as I got older, right, you realize that things don't look like you, right? Like I knew that the world didn't look like me and I just was always I think searching for something that looked like me. So Barbies, it was really confusing. Cut those off, chop those off. Because I just wanted representation, right? It's so important. So to finally have the American Girl that was sent in, and that was a complete and total surprise. I didn't know. And it was like all of my little being a little Russian girl, a little girl, right? Like all it was just like everything finally came full circle. And I was like, this, you just never realize you when you're young and you feel like you're so different, you don't think it's ever going to get better. Like I never thought it was going to be this good, right? So to get that doll, I was like, I cannot wait to give this to one of like my kid one day. But it was just a really special moment because it mattered. It mattered when I was little. It still matters, and you just want something that looks like you.
And you talked a lot about representation in the book, which I didn't really get to, but even in a doll, like that's so meaningful for people to see themselves in other people. So two more from me, and then a couple from the members. You say in the book a couple times, I always felt stupid, like growing up. And I wondered what journey you've been on in that area. Like, I know you're not. I know you're not. But like, what intentionality have you brought to that area of your life? Like, being an author is a pretty big step towards like not feeling dumb. So, like, what's your personal journey in?
Yeah, I know like I have my strengths and I definitely have my weaknesses, but I've learned a lot that my body, when I was learning, right, was going through so much that a child, like I should not have been going through. And that at the end of the day, my body was understanding another surgery, a bone, anesthesia, medicine. It was just, it was kind of in a fight or flight that, like, at the end of the day, it's like my brain didn't have a lot of energy to learn. Like, reading was just hard. Like, I couldn't understand it. It was like so exhausting. And that's okay, right? Like, my body was, I was basically in survival mode. But it was also like I felt stupid and dumb. Like, I wanted to learn, I did. I remember wanting, I didn't want to be I didn't want this to be a problem. Like, who didn't go through math homework with their dad at like the kitchen table? But I wanted to learn and I struggled. I mean, I was not a good reader until I was 12. I have strabismus in one of my eyes. So I'd had a eye surgery when I was really little, when I was adopted. So like reading would hurt my eyes. And Hannah could read it like 3 or 4. And I was like, what can't you do?
Of course, yeah.
I was like, and she would like read words that I like couldn't. And I'd be like, how we're reading this, like how I don't understand. So I've just learned that like we all have our strengths and weaknesses. And I did take some classes at a community college that really just helped reassure that like I probably needed a competitive environment as well. Like I was homeschooled with my surgery. So like I think I would have really thrived with other kids, but that's where you saw me thrive with swimmers and competitiveness with like on a team. But yeah, I mean, I definitely know I'm not. I love reading. It still strengthens my eyes. I also love audiobooks. But it is understanding and giving myself grace that you were not stupid. I think a lot of people feel that way more than we realize.
Mhm.
That there was other things going on in my life that I just couldn't. I
Yeah.
was trying to survive.
For
So
sure. Russ and I were just talking about my husband, Russ. We were just talking about like in, traditional Olympic sport, like a lot of college opportunity, et cetera. So like that's where I grew up and developed and all that stuff. And to be around people in my academic area of study who were like really passionate about specific areas of nutrition, right? And I just like couldn't put energy toward that. Like I was like, well, I have a degree, like the end. Like I just related a lot to this to I know you're a kid and I was in college, but like
yeah.
same to think about like what could my potential have been in this academic area if my focus wasn't split or my brain wasn't like dealing with so many different things. And to your point about like never wanting to sit around and be like, oh, my best days are behind me. Like I have a really serious interest in like exploring math again for fun because I used to love it in high school. So I just wanted to bring that up. Okay. We're going to touch on purpose just one more time because you really talk about that. And I think when you said you're a challenger, like you've developed your boundaries around like which fights are yours to fight and all of that stuff. Like
Yeah.
just to really answer the question, who are you authentically? Did you always feel like an advocate for others? Like finding your purpose and then applying that to advocating for others is like such
Yeah.
a strong theme at the end of the book. Was
Yeah.
that always a seed that was there, or did it really like
Yeah.
develop through your therapy?
I think it was. Again, my parents were like, Jess, one day we believe you're gonna do something great and you're gonna have a story. And my dad was the one, I mean, we were driving to the pool, my very first swim team. So must have been really young. I had not won a medal yet. I hadn't done anything great. And he was like, Jess, I think one day you're gonna have a book. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I think this purpose, but I also think there's something there too where purpose allows me to keep moving forward on my toughest days.
Mhm.
Right. It allows me to know like this bigger picture and that even when I feel like I'm not impacting others, right? My life has purpose, right? You never know the impact you have on others. You may never even see it, right? This book, I don't know how many people it could be impacting, but like through my life, I have tried to find purpose in every tough moment, every challenge. There's purpose in everything. And I think for me, my story is I've always said living proof that like anything is possible, right? I was never expected to do what I've done or to make this impact or to inspire others or to be a part of the Paralympic movement, right? And I could have used every excuse in the book, but I found that my life had meaning and purpose and that I was not going to waste this one life that I've been given. And even though it was hard, and even though I didn't choose it, and even though every day I'll have challenges and I'll never have legs, I just decided that, okay, I'm going to live this life to the fullest because I mean I don't have a choice, but like at the same time I do have a choice with the way that I approach every situation and the way that I have a choice with the way that I work hard and the way that I keep moving forward no matter how many times I fall down. And that's really hard. Like I like purpose allows me to keep living my life to the fullest. So and I try to share that with people, right? You're hearing my story and I get to share my life in a book and a couple books, but I love this idea. Everyone has a story, everyone has purpose. And sometimes you figure it out earlier or later, but it's always been there, right? Everyone's worthy of sharing their purpose,
Yeah.
but it
And
helps
that,
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why you like light up when one specific thing happens or just, but noticing the light up is the journey. That's
Yeah.
what the real attention is. Okay. member questions because they're better than mine. And I think they're really good wrap-up questions. So, how do you hope young athletes with disabilities interpret your story differently than the general public does?
Yeah, I hope young athletes, I think just seeing that I'm still doing it, I think is super important. I hope they interpret the confidence that sports can give. Never underestimate how confident sports or just what you're passionate about. Um, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it was like freezing. Um, can you? So sorry, it's like freezing. Could you say that one part again? Are you
Absolutely.
speaker?
So the general public might interpret your story one way. How do you hope that young athletes with disabilities interpret your story differently? What do you think they can see in you that other people maybe don't?
Okay. Sorry, it's like freezing. I hope they see in me, I hope they see themselves, right? I hope they see that with my disability and no matter what they're going through, their challenges, that representation is so important. And that's what I represent, that anything is possible with a big dream, right? Dreaming really big gets you so far. I think that's why I'm still swimming to this day, right? To prove to the next generation that they can do it too, right? Finding their why, I think is so important. But also just how sports can give such confidence, right? It allows me to face this world as an amputee, and I hope that they see that through me, the vulnerability piece, but also just representation. It comes down to that, especially in the Paralympic side. Just to see someone that looks like you can go so far, and I think that really, really helps. Just when you have your tough days, right? It's a tough day. It's not a bad life.
I love what you said about seeing themselves and building their confidence. Like you're just so good at empowering the athlete themselves, like individually to find their authentic self. Like that's the entire thing. You're not saying be like me, you're saying be yourself in the best way
Yeah.
that you possibly can. Okay, final one. And as your career has progressed, what challenges have grown more difficult, even with experience and success?
Mhm. The biggest challenge, honestly, just trying to remain on top has been so hard because I mean, I know that sounds silly, but like that's what I'm known for, right? To step up on the block and to win and to be tough. But like that's been a big challenge. And I still want to show people what I can do. But I also think so it's okay to have those walls come down and to let people know that I am human and there's a sweet side to Jess and that, I definitely love competing, but it gets harder and harder to win and to be this to perform. So that hasn't changed, but I hope that people see the dedication and the hard work and the sacrifice and that I just truly love this sport and that I've only ever wanted to grow this movement and that can I think that's going to be a lifelong thing even when I retire, is to always continue to grow the Paralympics. But it is definitely like, in order to do that, I want to still be on top, to still have a voice, to still there, and people like winning. So we'll see how LA goes, but just know that it's gotten a little harder and I'm trying my best, but I love this movement and I just can't wait to see where it goes.
Incredible. I love the idea and the way you described being 30 plus and needing to train differently and training less and all of that stuff. The idea that you have to trust yourself even more to do less to still succeed. And that's the difference. Because you're just as good. Your body knows what to do. And to really inherently trust yourself and your coach that changing the plan to succeed by doing something you've never done, which is less and different and more kind to yourself, is just as powerful as really putting the work in and going crazy in the pool when you were 15 years old. Because I definitely learned that in the end of my career too. At 38 years old, to come out of retirement and like only train 4 days a week and only throw once a week and just be kinder to myself and have almost the same results was such a powerful experience. So you got
Trust the
this.
process. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Um, yeah, David, that's a really good comment in the chat to kind of wrap up our journey together today. It's just it was so fun to talk to you. I wanted to talk about women in sport, like your
Oh,
mention of the Women's Sports Foundation and all of that stuff, but there's just no time because you're such an inspiration at every turn for who you are authentically. So thank you for sharing with us today.
thank you. I had so much fun. Thanks.